Hello, this is Jaime Nakache again from Luminati, and this is Marketing Fridays, episode 3. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how business automation actually works and talk about specifically what it is that causes things to get automated. So let's get right into it so I can explain to you how the magic happens inside the marketing world. All right? All right, so this is basically the anatomy of business and marketing automation 101. Let's get right into it. There's really two main components to the anatomy of the business automation workflow. And there's the first thing, which is called a trigger. And a trigger is basically something that happens that starts or begins the workflow. A workflow can have multiple additional workflows, or it can be a single workflow or a single action. So a trigger is usually created by some sort of action that the user, or in this case, let's say, of course, a human being or a person that's visiting a website takes, or it can be a different type of trigger that is not necessarily on a website, and we're going to go through them in a minute. And then the second step is the actual automation workflow. It really means that it's a series of activities that follow a very specific order. The actual order can be divided into two types of workflows. One is what's called a linear workflow, which means one thing happens right after the other and nothing that the user does will affect the order of those actions. And then there's more of an advanced one called, or what I call, a dynamic automation workflow. And that means that depending on what the user does throughout the workflow process, different actions are taken and the actual automation workflow goes into a different path. So let me show you this visually. But first, let's talk about the triggers. We're going to talk about two types of triggers. Business process triggers, which means anything to do with automating different administrative things inside your business. And of course, everything has to be digitalized. We're obviously not going to talk about anything that you do here in paper, but instead everything through the computer. And here's 12 examples that I came up with. The first one, to create an invoice. When you create an invoice, you can trigger that something happens in your organization, such as, for example, sending a task to your accounting department to make sure that they note down that there's something that has to be in accounts payable, so somebody needs to get paid. Or, for example, another trigger could be when somebody from your sales team tags a contact in your CRM. That means, for example, they create a tag called lead. Okay, so when that contact in your CRM is tagged as lead, maybe it creates another task for somebody to go follow up with that person a couple days later. Some other triggers could include receiving a payment, and of course noting it down in your accounting software, or completing a task, whether it's a project task or a sales and marketing task, or creating any sort of task either in your CRM, your customer relationship management system, or in your project management system, creating a new contact, creating a new sales opportunity, or what's also called a deal. It's actually something that you put in your sales funnel as a note of what is the potential that you can sell. And that could be a trigger that when that happens, something else is gonna, for example, you could create additional lead scoring points into your contact so that you know that you're closer to that lead actually getting closer. I mean, maybe that's not the best way to do it, but it's definitely a possibility. Also, another trigger could be creating a note, updating some contact information, updating an opportunity sales stage. Let's say that the sales stage moved from prospecting into the proposal stage. So when that happens, you can create another automated task for maybe letting the sales manager know that your sales team is doing better. Or, for example, when you complete a phone call, you can actually automate so that when somebody calls your business and the moment that the call finishes, we can create a process that automatically creates a note of who called, what was the duration of the call, and then let's say that the user can be sent a notification to add the notes of the phone call. And another last example, the trigger could be closing a support chat. So that when a user is chatting with your sales agent or your tech support agent and they close the chat, we can make something else happen, such as sending an email to that person. So that's everything related to business process triggers. And again, this is not the finite list, but just 12 examples. And here we have another 12 examples. In this case, specifically triggers about sales and marketing. The first one could be filling out a contact form on a website. Another one could be an opt-in for a lead magnet, which is another type of form when somebody's requesting to download, the guide for the 10 best tips for how to design a logo, or when somebody answers a survey, opening an email. For example, when somebody opens an email, we can trigger that another email be sent out if we chose to do so. Or clicking an email, visiting a website, a specific web page, or clicking a specific page, clicking a specific link within another page. Well, measuring how much time was spent on a website. Let's say that, if we see that any user spent more than 5 minutes on a website, we can create that to be the trigger that triggers maybe a pop-up to appear on the website, and that could be automated. Number 9, number of web pages visited. We can also say that, if any web visitor visits more than 10 pages, we should send a notification maybe to the sales team so that they try to get in touch with them. This, of course, assuming we can actually track exactly who it is, which again assumes that we already have that contact saved into our CRM. We could also have it triggered be when somebody watches a video, when they chat with a web operator, or when there's a phone call received. Very similar to the example I was explaining before. All right, and now let's visually explain to you the actual automation. So once a trigger happens, we can have these 2 types of automation workflows. This one is the first one I spoke to you about, the simple linear. In this case, there's only 2 actions. There's the trigger, then there's the action beginning, and then the reaction. So the trigger in this case is a new contact on the CRM is tagged as lead. And that was the example I was talking about before. This is actually something we actually use on our CRM, on Agile CRM. I created a workflow so that every time some contact is tagged with the word lead or the tag lead, I automatically have my system, in this case specifically using Zapier, create a task for me to follow up with that contact 7 days from the trigger date, which is great because all I have to do and save time is simply tag a contact with the word lead, and then I know that automatically there will be a task created for me to follow up with that person in 7 days. That way I don't have to spend the additional minutes or seconds going to creating a task to remind myself to do it. The reminder will be created automatically. And then, of course, what is the reaction? In 1 week from today or from whenever the contact was tagged, then I'll be seeing a reminder on my task list inside the CRM that now I should go follow up with them. In this case, you can see that it's linear because no matter what the user does, the trigger simply automatically creates this task. Now I'm going to show you something more complex. But before I do that, keep in mind that this simple linear automation could have multiple steps. So after the reaction, then we can have additional tasks created or additional emails sent or whatever we wanted. But what we mean by linear is that one thing happens after the other. There's no if or then statement. Okay? Now, on to the dynamic workflow, which is what most of the modern marketing automation tools allow you to do, including complex email drip campaigns. It's something that allows that the user interacts in one way or another with your workflow. So let's go through this example. A user fills out an online form requesting a design guide. In this case, this could be some type of PDF. The moment that somebody fills out that form, they'll automatically get an email with a link to download the PDF or with the PDF as an attachment. Then, as part of the workflow setup, we can create a node that checks, hey, did the person open the email or not? If they didn't open the email, then we'll ask the system or the workflow to wait 2 days and then send another email reminder. So this clearly shows that depending on what the user did, the workflow gets adapted. But if the user did open the email, then we check, hey, did they click on the link to the guide or not? If they did click on the link to the guide, in this case, we see right here, we wait 3 days, and then we try to send another email. Well, we don't try. We actually send another email where we try to upsell some paid services, okay? But what happens if they didn't click on the guide? Then we wait another 2 days and we send them another reminder. And of course, in this case, it looks like it'll go on forever. Every 2 days is going to send an email until they click the link to the guide. and then we wait for 3 days, and then we see if they, we send an email to upsell some paid services. Then in the next blue box, we check, hey, did they purchase a service? Yes or no. If they did purchase a service, then that's it. You're basically done. You take them out of the workflow because they've completed a sale. I mean, they bought something from you. If they didn't, let's say in this example, you wait 1 more day, and then maybe you send them an email with a 20% off coupon so that maybe you incentivize them to buy. Then we check again, hey, did they purchase? Yes or no? If yes, then you're done. If not, in this case, which maybe not, it doesn't make any sense, you'll wait another day and you'll send the email with a 20% on forever until they buy. So at least like this, you can get a good idea of the difference between a simple or a more dynamic automation workflow. So that's pretty much it. I wanted to keep this video short and explain to you the main parts that make up business automation. And again, that is a trigger and then the actual automation workflow itself. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you're going to be learning a lot from these Marketing Fridays video blogs. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.